Hello everybody and welcome to the School of War, and today we have one of the special episodes where we've got one of the best players, if not the best, that's exactly what we were arguing about a few seconds ago, of Boudica players. The man, the myth, the legend, Robert Oakridge. Say hello, Rob.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Oh yeah, you heard him. Rob, you also do a Twitch as well, right? Twitch streams?
Correct. Yeah, I've only been doing it for a couple months, but it's growing slowly and having a lot of fun with it. So,
well, ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna attach his Twitch stream into our description. That way you'll be able to follow him live right there. So let's get right into it. First, I would like to start with a bit of a question directly from me. How did you get into Boudica? What made you pick Boudica?
so when the game launched, I looked through the units like most of us did, and closed beta and had a started leaning towards War Dogs. Played them primarily all the way up through tier 8 or so. And those of you that remember and played back then, dogs were really overpowered, and they've been patched since then. Got to the point where they were just wrecking everything, and I was not having fun because it was just too easy. So I ditched the War Dogs, but I had Boudica tiered up and didn't want to waste all that time I'd invested. So started exploring other options to use her, and debated between swords and Falksman, tried them both out, and the rest is history. I've been pretty much 95% Boudica Falksman since then.
Why foxes over the swords?
The main reason I would say is because of the hamstring ability you get at tier 7. It really plays into her strengths, which is the Fury charge, and getting away from a lot of the abilities such as Vengeance, Defiance, Oath of Perseverance, some of the big ones that have timeouts on them if they're out of melee. So I can hamstring a unit, run away, let those abilities time out, and then charge it back in with a Fury charge, also while activating Rebellion while I'm out of combat. So it plays into that whole strategy more so than the swordsman.
You know, that's actually pretty novel to me now that I'm looking at her abilities, and you definitely have a good point. I mean, you can use your Fury to charge away, like what I'm thinking is against Vercingetorix. He activates his Defiance and Iron Discipline, but then you activate Ambush, you activate Rebellion and Fury. All of those give you speed, right? Ambush does give you speed, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Speed, I have an advantage against Vercingetorix. That's a big one-on-one you see in the forest, which is where I like to play. And you just have to work around Defiance. Defiance, I can't fight that one-on-one, but if Defiance is down, I have a huge advantage with Rebellion up, so I can win that fight.
Exactly.
9 out of 10 times now, yeah.
Yeah, and Defiance only requires quarter of a second out of combat in order for it to be cancelled. Unlike Vengeance, which is 5 seconds, so they just cannot chase you. You just keep running away. As soon as you're back, you're fully buffed while they've got nothing.
Correct, yep. Stable's turn in my favor.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's one way to play. Let's talk about Boudica's abilities. So Fury. Fury is the charge ability of Boudica. What is special about the Fury charge?
Fury charge is great with the impact damage is the big one. It's a plus 57% when you're maxed out. Charge impact's only 12%, so I can't win a head-on charge with a lot of units such as Roman Infantry. I have to avoid that head-on charge, but it's fairly easy to dodge with the speed advantage I have. And the missile block chance is also a plus 55, which is great for closing in on archers, especially when they try to barrage at the last second. All those things play in pretty well, and I try to take advantage of the situations and play into those stats.
You know, that's a very good point. And you said it also increased the speed, but I think that's the speed thing is going to be for ambush. But the missile block chance, I did not realize that. I just never checked the Boudica's details, but the fact that it increases missile block is a pretty good thing. As you said, if the archers are trying to barrage you, no can do. Boom, they get hit directly.
Yeah, correct. And there's very few archer players when they activate the barrage that are going to move and waste that barrage. So it's a great combination of them sitting still, barraging you. And I go from, I think it's a 19 missile block on Falksman up to a 74 with the Fury charge.
Yeah, that could definitely turn the tide. That could reduce the damage you're receiving by quite a lot. And in the future, if we get any abilities that increase your missile block, which I suspect will be coming, You can even get a 100% with the Fury charge. That way you can just keep using your units. But that's for the future. So a Fury charge is something that you should be using when charging, when engaging. Speaking of engagements, let's talk about, just really quick, what units should you be engaging and looking out for when playing as Boudica?
You can gauge just about any unit once you have the experience and learn how to do it. A big one that really gives me trouble, and I know you probably have experience with this because this is a unit you like to play, is Caesar Javelins. Caltrops. The Caltrops are my nemesis, and the Vici, when it stops the Fury, I'm just a sitting duck with no armor and no missile block. I melt pretty easily. So Javelins are probably my least favorite fight. The only one.
What about the Heavy Infantry?
Heavy infantry, I enjoy that. I just have to pick my spots. I have the speed advantage, so I can make them fight on my terms. They don't have to. You know, I don't have to engage unless I don't want to. So it's pretty.
I see.
Pretty good advantage for me.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, as barbarian factions, that's one different thing that I have noticed is that picking your engagements is the name of the game. Do you think that's correct?
Absolutely, yeah. Like I said, I struggled the first, I'd say, 500 matches. I was pretty bad at this game because I was just trying to keep the pedal to the metal and just charge everything, and it, worked out very badly for me. So I've learned to pick my spots and just run away if I need to.
I'm really glad that you mentioned that you were bad when you started, which is the hardest part of the game. Like if you've read Musashi Miyamoto's Book of Five Rings. He says it right there, as well as one of his famous sayings, everything is most difficult at the beginning. Everybody sucks when they start. Some people suck less, some people suck more. However, in the end, your talent, your initial talent, does not matter. After you have played enough, after you have learned the basics, you're all gonna be at the same level. Like at the competitive level, your talent does not matter anymore. Don't you think?
Yeah, there's a lot of evidence that supports that, definitely, and just practice. And the biggest thing, and it definitely applies to this game, is if you're losing engagements versus certain units or certain scenarios just aren't playing out in your favor, don't do the same thing over and over. I see people doing it all the time. Vengeance is melting them, and the next match they sit there and fight Vengeance straight up again. It's just learn from your mistakes and just keep getting better. Exactly.
Like it's one thing. I don't remember who said it, but I heard this somewhere that has been kind of the motto when it comes to my training in just about anything. Some people kick the ball, some people play football.
I like that one. Yep.
Yeah, I think it was like a football coach who said it. Not my football coach, but like one of the famous ones. And that has been really the thing. We see these people who have played thousands of battles, tens of thousands of battles, but they're still maybe like barely above average. Maybe they can be good, but they're certainly not great. So this deliberate practice, this learning from your mistakes, as well as just learning from your victories as well. Like I'm kind of gonna reveal a little secret here. I spend as much time playing as I spend watching replays and theory crafting.
That can be very valuable. Yeah, I definitely do it on occasion. I don't do it as much as I think you do, just because I don't have the patience you probably do. I should, exactly. But I don't. But I look back and why did I lose that, especially in the early stages of playing this game. It just goes back. They say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So,
do you remember Far Cry 3?
A little bit, yeah.
Have I told you the definition of insanity? That scene, it was so good. Man, boss, it was just lightning in a bottle, man. There'll never gonna be another boss. I just got emotional, but all right, let's get back. So yeah, the barbarians I feel like is a really unforgiving faction because you're so fast, but you're low on armor. You have to take advantage of fighting in the woods. So map knowledge is very important, wouldn't you say?
Correct. Yeah, you definitely got to play the terrain as barbarians, and unlike heavy infantry and cavalry with speed, you have the speed as barbarian. But if you get in a bad situation against javelins, archers, or you get a couple heavy cav charges, the round's over for you for the most part.
Yeah, however, there's still you've got a lot of tools to deal with that. Not to mention because you're kind of like an ambusher, field of vision is really your friend, isn't
Oh
it?
yeah, yeah. You get I think it's a 30 or 40 on average advantage over most units. So you definitely got to use that. And as soon as you spot something, make a quick decision before they spot you. If you're going to engage, kite, run away, whatever. But you got to make a quick decision, definitely.
So making a quick segue, so from this ambush ability, that one is exactly serves for that purpose, right?
Correct. Yeah, you don't get it on the melee infantry. You do get it on your archers and your war dogs, which I've been playing a lot more recently. And the archers, especially, you're there in your range, and you're seeing them before they even see you. And that's another thing. Are you going to engage, or are you going to run away and kite and pick your spot and then fire that first volley a little bit later? Because obviously, as soon as that volley's fired, they know you're there and they're calling in reinforcements, which is usually the cavalry. So.
Yeah, however, you are able to go run back into the forest. I feel like that's the barbarian's biggest advantage again in terms of archer fire. You're able to fire without them being able to see you. If they can't see you, sure, they know that you're there, but they cannot target you while you can target them. Is that a case that happens often, or is that a rare thing?
It happens all the time now. I mean, that's primarily what I do with archers, and people question why I'm going to the forest with archers, because you do get a 10% damage debuff. But the trade-off versus, like I said, firing when they don't see you, and you can do that over and over and over, because even in the forest, your archers are still faster than most infantry units are in the forest. So
Yeah, and I feel like in a tournament setting, you will have Miltiades with you to protect you from that cavalry. Now add that, let's say they've sent in cavalry, boom, it's Miltiades. He fears them, you shoot them, and you can just wipe them off. So that can be a great thing. After all, with ambush's speed, you will be able to kite them a little bit, adding the rebellions. And let's talk about the rebellion next. The rebellion's movement speed. I feel like Miltiades will be able to catch that cavalry that had the mistake of scouting you. Don't you think?
Absolutely, yeah. Especially in the forest with the debuff on the cavalry. Most good cavalry players don't like going to the forest for that reason, because of the lack of visibility and the speed debuff. So yeah, that combined with the fear and the rebellion on Boudica and her allies can be huge, and you can finish off cavalry pretty quickly, especially when you're shooting them in the back as they retreat.
Yes, yes. In fact, let's talk about the big one, rebellion. Okay, what do you have to say about rebellion? What do you think is the goal, is the job of the rebellion?
Rebellion is, and I think it's in a good spot. People try to compare it directly with things like Vengeance and Defiance and all these other Tier 5 ultimate abilities. And I think they know what they're doing, and that it's not as strong as those abilities. But with the long cooldowns in the melee, out of melee timeouts, it can't be on par with those. So the trade-off is, if you're cycling them properly, and by cycling I mean using on one unit at a time, affecting your units and allies constantly, you can keep that up for the most of the match. So any engagement you're in where those ultimate abilities aren't active but yours is, you have an advantage. So you really got to play into that.
Oh yeah, certainly. I mean, if both sides have the same support, the fact that you have activated your rebellion will give them a fighting advantage when they're fighting head to head, at the very least.
Yeah, gives big stat buffs for sure. You're looking at 80% melee defense, melee weapon damage plus 48%, and often overlooked, but just almost as important as the 10% movement speed.
Oh, certainly, certainly. Like, I can definitely say, as a Caesar player, my VD being up, giving that 15% movement speed is huge. Like, it's tremendous, because you're able to move quickly, you're able to dodge, and I can definitely say not maybe majority, but quite a bit of my micro comes from that 15% speed. So, and all of these things stack. So imagine you've got Vinny and you've got Rebellion together. Ooh, you got Sonic the Hedgehog right there.
Yeah, I actually saw it last week. A guy had Vinny, and I gave him Rebellion, and he had Vengeance active, and I just sat back. I could have helped him out, but I just wanted to watch him melt
Yeah.
everything by himself.
Oh yeah, that's one thing you can do. Yeah, I feel like one other special thing the of Rebellion has, unlike a lot of other buffs, unlike Caesar's buffs and everything, if you activate Rebellion, it stays on your allies as long as they were in that range of that activation, correct?
Correct. Yeah, as long as they're in the circle, they all get affected by it, and it's active for 60 seconds. So all you got to do is kind of, like I said, cycle through one at a time, and when it's about to go down on you, you know it's also about to go down on your allies. Pull one of your units out of combat, activate it, charge it back in, and keep doing it over and over.
Oh, exactly, exactly. So you can just call, like before a major engagement, you can just call for a rebellion, everybody gathers around, and then everybody gets back to their spots and just keeps on fighting with that rebellion on. That could be a game changer.
Yeah, a minute's a long time in this game, so that's huge.
Yeah, there's one thing I was wondering, does Cavalry get ambush?
No, they do not. So a lot of people have
Uh,
been lobbying for that, but I don't think it's going to happen just because the barbarian cavalry is already so fast. And as you can see, the scouting points they get in most of the matches, I don't know if they really need it.
Yeah, that is true. In addition, I feel like giving Rebellion to Barbarian Cavalry as well will make them a little too good because if people have seen my support cavalry video, it is good even with slow, even comparatively slow Roman cavalry. You're able to spread those buffs very well, and adding Rebellion, a buff that does not require you to stand there, that can imbalance the game quite a bit. Like support Boudica can be a cornerstone of the game thanks to her ambush rebellion. She could be good even without cavalry having that. I feel like you can
Um,
definitely pull that off.
the cavalry does get rebellion. Your question, I think, was
Oh,
ambush, or unless I
yeah.
misheard you. But they don't get ambush, but they do get rebellion. So
Oh, my mistake, my
yeah,
mistake. Yeah, the
yeah.
rebellion stuff, if you play it like that, I feel like that can be a huge game changer. Especially if you've got like depending on the your and the opponent's builds, I feel like you might be able to benefit that quite a bit, especially in like a 7 versus 7 or 10 versus 10 battles.
Yeah, I have a couple cavalry players I've been partying with the last couple weeks, and been giving them rebellion before they take off and do their thing. And I mean, 10% movement speed, along with those other buffs, with some
Yeah.
already really fast cavalry, is a huge deal.
Yeah, not to mention the terrain bonus modifier with the bonuses over there combined on the road, they might be able to wipe out the units they would just normally struggle with, don't they?
Correct. Yep, absolutely.
So yeah, absolutely. So lastly, what do you think Boudica's role is within the team?
She's pretty versatile. I mean, I try to play her pretty aggressively. I play mostly solo in the pubs and whatnot, but obviously in a team competitive setting, you're gonna have to reel that in a little bit because the competition's better. But I think it's gonna be kind of what you said. You're gonna buff your team before a coordinated attack, and then pick your spot to get those fury charges off. And your big thing is to make sure your team has rebellion up for most of that battle, and doing what you need to do, and realizing that your damage output is probably going to be secondary in that setting, and making
Mm-hmm.
sure much of your team as you can get it on, has rebellion active as much as possible.
So Boudica is a lot more like a support than like mainly a support, but also has a secondary duty of a damage dealer.
Yeah, that's kind of how I play. Especially you get in these higher tier matches, and you got almost everybody in a party, and it's got a very similar feel to a competitive match when you get some of these good players in there, and that's kind of the role I end up falling into.
Mm-hmm.
Supporting my team from just behind the lines, far enough away from the archers where if they're shooting at me, I can easily dodge them with the speed,
Yeah.
and then flanking around, preferably through the forest where I can hide, and picking a spot to use that 6-second fury charge that gives me the missile block and all that to close in on archers.
Mm-hmm.
And if I can get close enough on archers or javelins and hamstring them, they're dead. So
Yeah. By the way, do you get fury on the archers?
no, I've actually created quite a few threads asking for that because I thought it'd be a great ground closer to
Yup.
go against barrage. You could use that
Yep.
against barrage and close ground and then return fire, but I don't think they're willing to do that for me.
Yeah, I can see why, but I can definitely see Fury going for the archers. Chances are they're waiting for that a new general and make sure that Boudica does not overshadow him.
Yeah, it's pretty much what I was told. I was hoping to either get Fury on the archers or Rebellion. You can run around as archers and buff your teammates. But I like you said, I think they're just putting it off to the barbarian archer commander coming up.
Yeah, we will see how that one goes, but I feel like Archer is definitely a viable choice for Boudica, don't you think?
Absolutely, that 20% range with ambush just can't be overlooked. People try to say, she's barbarians don't have an archer commander, but I've been doing really well with her for the last couple months, just pretty much off that weapon range alone, along with that 50% view range. You just can't overstate how great it is to shoot at something that can't see you.
So what kind of three-man combination would you suggest for our viewers?
She's pretty versatile, like I said, with these, with Rebellion, the buffs, those are going to be good for just about any units you can imagine. Heavy infantry, a first in Getrix, you can give Rebellion before they go in and do their whole thing with their Iron Discipline Defiance. That's going to make them extremely strong. Cavalry, like we said earlier, the movement speed and the damage bonuses, they're going to get to the ranged faster and finish them faster. So I can't say there's a best at this point. I don't have enough experience, I guess, in the more competitive scene to really say, but I'm very interested to see how it plays out, because the matches I've seen and the few tournaments they've had thus far, I don't think I've seen a Boudica player.
Yes,
I could be wrong.
yeah. In the last week's tournament, in the last week's live stream tournament, I believe we never seen a Boudica at all in the game. I feel that's partially because people do not realize that she's a hidden. In my opinion, she's a hidden gem because she can support. Her archers are good. Dogs as well, because they can serve as both light infantry and light cavalry at the same time with their dogs. But what about for running single? What about for running solo? What do you think is the best, most fun way to grind with Boudica?
Boudica with 3 Falksmen is definitely, if I want to, let some steam off and just go mash the enemy in some solo, that's definitely what I play. But I've had a lot of fun lately running 2 barbarian archers in my 3rd unit, running a dog unit, and I was running a Falksman unit as a 3rd as a shield. But the dog unit being, pretty much 2 separate units, you can screen a lot better with the 2 separate entities there and finish them off with your archers. So I've been doing really well with that and having a lot of fun with it. It's a lot more micro intensive and very rewarding, and on top of that, it plays into my whole thing where I like to play combinations that other people don't play. So
yeah, similarly with me, but that one's a topic for another time. All right. Did you have anything to add to Boudica? Any suggestions to the Boudica players?
No, I see a lot of people in the forums and Reddit lately saying, she's underpowered, and I think it's just one of those cases where a game like this, there's going to be your more cookie cutter commanders and unit types, and then there's going to be, I don't want to say a higher skill cap, but a steeper learning curve for some combinations, and I think Boudica falls in that category. Like I said, I struggled with her for a long time, but I stuck with her because a lot of people weren't using her with melee units, and it's paid off. I've learned how to play with her, and I think I'm doing pretty well for the most part. Just have to learn how to play her, and it's just trial and error and watching streamers, myself, Falks God's another one. And there's a couple other really good Boudica players out there, and just learning from them, because we've been through the trials and paid our dues of bad rounds.
I know what you mean. I know exactly what you mean. And so, yeah, absolutely. As you said, people should watch the streams, should watch the guides, and that can make their learning curve a lot easier, so they do not have to go through the same mistakes, same arduous process as we did, and that's why we're here. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this was Robert Oakridge and Arclinon, and please join Robert on his stream, which you can find in the description, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys.